Hello, and today I want to talk about the sad state of affairs of Call of Duty and really just the AAA gaming sphere in general, but mostly Call of Duty because I have a bone to pick with Activision. But um, I'm just gonna I'm playing Tarkov in the background here, playing single player Tarkov because I can't stand the fucking multiplayer version of that game. I've recorded this so many times. I've redone this so many times trying to find the concise points as to properly get across what I'm saying. And I'm just gonna simplify it for you so anyone to a point where anyone can understand. What is Call of Duty? Call of Duty is a subscription service. You pay $80 for every year so you can have your shooty shooty bang bang fun of the year. That is what Call of Duty is. That is the business model that they have been going with and have stuck with forever. And honestly, I'm genuinely kind of not surprised, yet surprised at the same time on the direction the series went. Because we went from humble beginnings to the worst case of gaming AIDS since Fortnite. But don't believe me? End of this video, you might. So, without further ado, let's just get into the meat and potatoes. So, Battlefield 6 came out, and Call of Duty is fucking panicking. They are so unbelievably desperate right now. It's sad. Call of Duty is an annual release franchise. Now, what that inherently means is a new game has to come out every year at some point. They went with this business model for one very good reason. The same reason why Activision does anything in the first place. Money. Now, I'm just gonna say this. I genuinely think if the devs were given the time of light by the publisher, they could make something good. But the problem is that a Call of Duty entire video game in 3 years is a lot to ask for. I mean, I know you build the game off the same bones, which cuts down on that production cost, but let's face it, games look way better than they used to. The assets that we developed for these older Call of Duty games were way easier to develop, simply because they weren't as detailed. You don't realize, like with the 4K textures, everything maximum lighting, you realize that every single detail of that game world has to be meticulously put there. Every speck of dust on your weapon, every little can found somewhere scrunched up on the map, every blade of grass, everything. It's all put there by people. Well, maybe not the grass, but you get the point. Every single aspect of the game world is put there by people. So, theoretically, as time goes on, you'd expect that the Call of Duty developers would decrease their production, or would increase their production time to keep up with the increasingly high graphical fidelity standards that they set for themselves with 2019. Well, here's an interesting little tidbit. You ever wonder why the Call of Duty games are always like 200 plus gigabytes? It's because them's a lot of really high detailed assets, and this detail, it hinders development and it sacrifices storage and performance. But I have a question. Is any of that actually good for the video game underneath? Because really, like, BattleBit Remastered is a perfect example. It was outperforming 2042 back when 2042 came out. When Battlefield fans wanted to play Battlefield, they played BattleBit Remastered. Not Battlefield, because 2042 fumbled so hard. And yet the game looked like this. It was plastic. It was so clearly a video game. But why did this game do better than Battlefield? Because it was actually fun. It was made by passionate people with a vision, with a concise vision. And the game just worked. It was it's really well optimized. I can play it on my laptop, which is surprising considering it has trouble playing Black Ops 2. But and I can play BattleBit decently well too. That's the strengths of having low graphical fidelity titles, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. My point was is that the while the demand in production has gone up as the games start to look better, the amount of times the dev actually has to work on the game hasn't changed at all. It's still that 3-year cycle. You ever wonder why Call of Duty used to release its games with like at least 6 or 7 weapons in each weapon class, and now you look at the pistols and there's 3 of them, and you look at the SMGs and there's 3 of them, and you look at the shotguns and there's 3 of them? This is why. It's because everything comes at a price, and if you're gonna make these games look as good as they do, you need to give the devs the fucking light of day that they need to see to be able to breathe and actually, be happy and make an experience that's worth the amount of money people are paying for it, not crunch them into oblivion, lay them off, and then enjoy the fruits of their labor. Because that's another thing that they do. And this is another thing that I really don't like, is instead of hiring a group of core employees, they have their group of core employees, but it's smaller. And they instead go and dish out the work to a lot of these other contract workers, which, they're not paid overtime, they're not, So, the result of things like this can be mixed results. Now, luckily, Activision has done a pretty good job so far, staving away a lot of what could have been the worst things, but come on, let's be real. There's some shit up here. Now that I've talked about the storage and the performance and just the general fucking of the COD development cycle, let's talk about the actual, games themselves. So, Modern Warfare 2019. This was when I was this is the first time I entered the Call of Duty bandwagon, because every year they release their game, and then the next year they release their game, and then they continue the support for that game a year until the next game comes out, and then they discontinue all support for that game, and then move on to the next one. So if you want the most polished experience, if you want something that's actively worked on, that they're actively fixing bugs and banning hackers, you're going to have to buy the new Call of Duty game, because the support for these things on the older ones isn't there. It's really sad to go back and see, like, even a lot of the newer titles, like 2019, and even Modern Warfare 2, 2022. I really liked that game. I had a shit ton of fun with that game. But playing it now just doesn't feel the same. Why? Well, because, I turn the corner. The first thing I see is Homelander with a gun, and he's pointing it at me. And I shoot him, and he dies, and then afterwards, sliding from around that same corner, comes Nicki Minaj with a fully automatic fire shotgun, who instantly deletes my entire health bar, and makes me question my life choices. When something is there to actively yank you out of the gameplay experience, it kind of, like, takes it away. But this isn't just me hating on games with these collaborations, because I happen to like Fortnite's method. But why do I like Fortnite's method and I disagree with Call of Duty's? Well, it's a matter of Fortnite's fucking free, and the cosmetics don't cost an arm and a leg. It doesn't cost an entire paycheck or an entire allowance to buy a fucking skin. And you know what? It's actually not that bad. It's really not that bad, because you don't actually have to buy any of the bundles that they put in the store. But I find it funny how Activision copies what Fortnite is doing, because Fortnite's making hella money. And Activision knows it, and they're copying them to a T in their Call of Duty games, expecting exactly the same result. I bet if you log on to the new Call of Duty games, you see, oh, there's an advertisement for the Vault Edition, there's advertisements for all these bundles, and the Battle Pass, and fucking Just so many little things to spend your money in a game that already costs money to pay. And you're paying for a new Call of Duty every year. And the worst part is that, okay, story. Um, I didn't think I was going to buy Cold War. I didn't think I was going to like Cold War. So I did a last minute impulse buy in 2019 and I bought a bundle with a gun that I wanted. So I got the gun. I did the thing. It was cool. I put down 2019 and I never touched it again. A bunch of real life money just wasted on a gun that I can't even use in the next year's game, which makes sense. Because if you could do that, then that would just be cheating. But then, why invest any money in these games at all? You know, I bought that Fortnite skin. I bought that Fortnite Battle Pass way the fuck back when, and I could still use it in mainstream Fortnite. Mainstream Fortnite that gets monitored for hackers and bugs and stuff like that. But Call of Duty is not like that. Instead, they are fucking the game for nothing more than a quick buck, and it really, really sucks. I have not bought a single bundle in any of the Call of Duty games since that purchase, because I know that it's just going to disappear the next year anyways, so what's the point? I'm just giving Activision more money for a gun that I already would have been able to use. If they made it pay to win, that'd be even worse. They haven't stooped that low, but I guarantee if we let them get away with it, they could. But they won't, because people are too angry at EA for that initially. And okay, another interesting thing though is how okay, because what these games do is kind of genius. Well, it's supposed to benefit the customer. It did benefit the customer for a long time, but year after year after year, just to play essentially the same experience over and over and over again, was that really worth it in the first place? And the thing is that Call of Duty has such a stranglehold on the mainstream gaming outlet that pretty much back when there were really no alternatives, Call of Duty was a big game. A lot of people played Black Ops 6. You know why? Because it was the big new mainstream shooty. It was something new to invest your time in. You know? Okay, so I am going to take a moment to rant about Vanguard. I'm sure a lot of you are pretty eager to hear my opinion on this, and I'm happy to give one to you. In that it's single-handedly the worst shooter experience I ever thought I would ever experience from a AAA dev. It is laughable. It is pitiful. And for a very large multitude of reasons as well. But first, let's talk about the weapons, because you know what? The weapons are the entire reason you buy Call of Duty. That's the baseline. If you can't get the weapons right, then the game's gonna be shit. And guess what? The weapons were good if the gunsmith wasn't a thing. And another thing, actually. So, before I talk about the gunsmith, I actually want to talk about something that I never have seen anybody else tackle when it comes to Vanguard, which is the actual weapons that are present here. Because in every Call of Duty, there's a huge emphasis on A, customization, and B, assault rifles. Assault rifles can do pretty much any job you need them to. They can do long range, short range, maybe not extremely long range, but you could definitely get them close. And the truth is that they work pretty well at those jobs. There's an interesting thing when in your World War II game, instead of committing to making the equipment realistic and actually, making the weapon selection interesting, like, oh, do I choose an SMG, which can't really deal with range? Do I deal with an MG42 that just melts everything? I'm going to grab the MG42, actually, and I'll stick with the Grant, the second slot. Or, I don't know, it's getting kind of close range. Maybe switch to the MP40. Because, you know what? You didn't have an assault rifle that shot 30 bullets, and that could kill a guy in, like, 3 hits. The truth is that, well, in Call of Duty, the weapon selection really matters. You know, World at War had one assault rifle. World at War had one assault rifle. The STG-44, which is not only historically accurate, but is also, it's it makes sense because it was the only real assault rifle used during that time by any major military power. It was the only one majorly used. And yet, for some reason, Call of Duty Vanguard had this weird obsession with random just prototype assault rifles that kind of did everything, that looked weird, and that had the same gunsmith customization as everything else, which, theoretically is supposed to be good. But, in World at War, I would think a lot about the weapons that I was taking into battle with me. In a lot of these newer Call of Duty games, you don't even have to think about it. You don't have to pick up any enemy weapons. You don't have to think about doing it. You have a gun that does exactly what you need it to do, and it can keep doing that thing, and you get lots of bullets for it. The problem being that by focusing on the assault rifles in this way, not only do you take away from the World War II setting, but you also remove another element of the game that could have been more interesting. Imagine if we got more, instead of more assault rifles, we got more weird ass bolt actions or semi automatic, like, weird things, and just stuck to like one or maybe two assault rifles. That. Imagine how cool that would be to see in the modern day. Modern Call of Duty title with no assault rifles. What? You mean the game would actually stand out a little bit from the others? Holy shit. Nope, we can't be having that. And that's not even touching the gunsmith yet. And it's super funny. The gunsmith. So, in the older Call of Duty games, the gunsmith, you can only choose 5 attachments for a very good reason. Let's say you have a stock and you want to put an extended magazine and an extended barrel and a recoil grip and a suppressor and a scope. Well, the truth is that you can't do that because that would be 6 attachments. You have to get rid of one of those. You either have to sacrifice the extended mag or a little bit of recoil control or your long-range scope or your silence from your suppressor. There's trade-offs. You actually had to think about how you wanted to kit out your weapon, and it would not only prioritize thinking, but it would also make sure that players would kit out different weapons for different situations, which is really, it's an interesting aspect of the game that genuinely brought so much life to it. But the problem being that in Vanguard, not only do they give you things like blast and fire ammo that actually ignites people and blows up with pretty good results. And then you give every weapon 10 attachments. What happens? Well, for one, people who are starting off in the game are inherently at a disadvantage because when they don't have a gun that's max level with all the attachments and all the fire things and everything that makes it meta, then you really don't have anything to compete with because, well, you're just not high enough level. Well, it's too bad, get good scrub. Campaign wasn't even that good, man. Gunsmith's customization was dog shit, though. That was the worst part of the game. It actively ruined it in so many metrics, because Call of Duty has to have this focus on the customization. That was a gimmick from a lot of the earlier games, so they had to do it again. They figured they had to do it again, and because Sledgehammer thinks they're better than everyone, they just took away all the fucking spare weapon They took away all the weapon attachment restrictions, just said, fuck it, go have fun. And I genuinely don't know whether because somebody thought this was a good idea, or because they were just trying to come up with a unique quirk for the gunsmith and couldn't think of anything, so they just decided to shit that out and then drop it with the game. I genuinely don't know. It could be either. And that's the unfortunate truth. And that Vanguard was the only Call of Duty beta that I've ever played that I played for like 20-30 minutes, got so ridiculously bored, I actually uninstalled the game. I uninstalled the beta. I tried. I genuinely tried. But before I could even get to level 8, I was bored, and I quit the game. Activision has such a stranglehold on the mainstream FPS market. Every time they create a new thing, people just eat up their slop because there's literally nothing that quite satisfies that same itch in the mainstream. Nothing else, because if you buy a Call of Duty game, it's safe. You know you're getting a game that's going to work somewhat. It's debatable now. Another thing I hate is the weapon metas. Man, What the fuck happened to all weapons being good? Like, okay, Modern Warfare 2, I'll go back to that game. I think the weapon balancing in that game is kind of a mixed bag, because on the one hand, most of the weapons have usable enough time to kills. On the other hand, there are just explicitly some weapons that are better than others. Just explicitly, outright. I don't know who decided we needed, like, 15 different assault rifles that all do pretty much exactly the same thing. They hold 30 bullets, they kill a guy in roughly 3 shots, and, the difference is the sound, the feel, and the attachments. And functionally, it's the same gun. And another thing. Okay, so I'm gonna use this to make a greater point just on the state of AAA gaming in general, because I think this is a pretty good example. Companies like Activision will make these games, and then they will tell you that this is the best game that they're ever making. That they're putting so much effort into it, that this is going to be it, guys. You're going to get everything you asked for. And then it turns out to be the same shit again. And people are just tired of getting duped, man. Battlefield 6 really did swoop in like a savior at the last minute to save us. Because honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm very, very pleasantly surprised about Battlefield 6. I was not expecting that game to be nearly as good or return to form as it was. It's exactly what we needed. Because it also proved to the Call of Duty developers that the devs could give them everything that they were asking for if they really wanted to. That the things that they were asking for are not impossible, but are in fact very doable, and instead are just straight up being held back by the greed of the executives. And at the end of the day, as long as people keep buying these games, expecting shit to change, shit will never change. You know, 2042 spoke to EA with their wallets. Because, you know what, man? I saw that back when it first came out. I saw the game on sale for $2. A $70 full-priced modern game on sale for $2. I just want to put that into perspective. That was how bad things were for Battlefield last year. That was the last Battlefield year. That's how bad things were. But the thing is that now that Battlefield has released a good game and gamers got everything that they've been asking for forever. No SBMM, no goofy, wacky cosmetics that don't belong in the setting, all that kind of stuff. These AAA studios, the indie studios are popping off right now because they have one thing that the AAA developers do not have, which is passion. And, you know, a flexible framework. They're not beholden to shareholders or a strict deadline. Well, sometimes a strict deadline, but even still, significantly less pressure than a lot of these AAA titles, and the result is pretty good. The problem is that a lot of these indie studios aren't really big enough to make your dreams happen. Because the truth is that developing video games is a hard endeavor. It is very difficult. So I don't see why we're spending so much time and effort on making these games look and sound and, like, all of that the best. Focus on the way they feel, the way they move, the way they sound, the way they feel to play. That's the whole point of a lot of these older games. They made you feel a certain way. When you were playing Halo Combat Evolved, you felt like you were on that alien ring. It was cool. It was immersive. And it didn't break immersion to fucking shove microtransaction bundles down your throat. Because they want you to spend more money. It was just a good video game, and people bought it. That's what made this franchise, this is what made video games so successful in the first place. And I don't think that what we're asking for as gamers is impossible. I'm just thinking, with the current way the AAA developers are set up, in terms of graphical fidelity. Here's an interesting question. All of the innovation in the field of AI over the years, chatbots, stuff like that, why haven't they made a game where you can talk to the in-game characters fully? Yeah, other than just some obscure VR titles that you could just throw the skull around in or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I've had this game idea in my head for a little while, sort of like survival or sort of like a survival shooter, where basically dropped into this world. It's full of zombies. It's full of people who want to kill you, and the people are the dangerous ones. But the zombies are dangerous enough to keep you on your toes. And in said game, I want every round to feel like a journey with with a director telling you is it going to be a good day, is it going to be a bad day. It dictates what spawns in the houses, what fucking enemies decide to show up that day, you know, or like enemy settlements deciding to do something like move or fucking go out for a loot run. You know, interesting stuff like that. I like a fully living, breathing game world, kind of like what Stalker was trying to be. The problem is that, well, this game doesn't exist. Why? Well, because developing video games is hard. An average plebeian like me can develop the assets and maybe make the characters move, but they're not going to be able to actually code any of the systems behind the scenes that make these games what they are. We can't do this. The AAA developers find themselves in the very unique position. They have the money, they have the talent, and they could absolutely make the best games that you have ever played, but they don't, because it's safer not to. They are going to continue releasing Call of Duty because it continues selling, and that is the point. Activision will listen to your wallet, and if you buy this game, then they win. And if you're genuinely unhappy with the state of Call of Duty, if you're unhappy with buying a $70 game and then seeing a whole bunch of other $30, $35 microtransactions shoved in a store with a battle pass, if you're tired of getting real-life celebrities in your games and not even bothering to put in a real-life or like some kind of in-game explanation, you know, like I was saying, Fortnite earlier, literally made the collapse of reality itself a major plot point throughout all of the seasons, which kind of gives at least an excuse for a lot of these characters to be there. And like I said, it really does help that the game is free. But Activision, we're already paying for your game, and you expect the majority of players to shill out lots of money on these in-game bundles, and they do. The worst part is that it works. You could buy that weed skin in Call of Duty and kill people and turn them into weed, but that skin's gonna be gone the next year. So what do you do when that happens? You're just gonna buy a new one for the next game, or you gonna go back and you're gonna play the old one with all its hackers and botched servers? It's a really unfortunate thing how a lot of these games feel like they're designed to die. Like, well, you can't go back and play the older Call of Duty games anymore. Like Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike, Global Offense. Okay, that's not what this video is about. But just on a quick side tangent, Counter-Strike, you can't play the original CSGO anymore. Why? It was so much better optimized, and I would have absolutely loved that for something like my laptop, because I could run CS on my mom's really shitty work computer from years ago on pretty high graphics and get really good frames. So, you know what? It was pretty good optimized, but I really doubt that that PC would even be able to have enough storage space to download Counter-Strike now. Because the game looks so good. And like I said, there's cost to everything. You can't go back and play the original Counter-Strike. Much in the same way, you can't go back and play these original Call of Duty games, because if you do, technically you can. Legally you can. They haven't shut down these games entirely yet, but they have stopped support for things like hackers. Hackers are allowed to just run rampant, on top of the fact that a lot of the older game engines it's so ridiculously easy to use the Call of Duty engine, the old Call of Duty engine, to hack into other people's computers. I had it happen to me. So, I don't know. This kind of shit makes me sad. Because you jack up the prices of your old games, and you force the new ones down our throats, but we don't want to play the new ones, and the old ones you're not supporting. So what exactly are we supposed to do? You're supposed to buy the new game. That's what they want you to do. That's why they do that. This because they want you to buy their newest, most expensive one yet. And you know, man, it all goes back to the same thing. Why is Activision taking down Battlefield 6 maps that pertain to why or because Battlefield 6 comes with the map editor and you can release or Battlefield came out with labs, which is basically allows people to build their own maps and stuff like that, and Activision is taking copyright striking and taking down a lot of people's recreations of Call of Duty maps in Battlefield, and the reason they want to do this is simple. Money. It's because if you're playing Shipment in Battlefield instead of Call of Duty, then we invented Shipment. Shipment's our thing. It's not your thing. You need to play Call of Duty for that. Spend $80. It's becoming desperate. The truth is that the more desperate this gets, the more people are going to notice. The more people are going to notice, the more people are not going to give a shit. Like I was saying, I'd like for this to be the end of Activision as we know it. I really hope that Call of Duty gets better, but the truth is, Activision's making money. It's pretty obvious they're making money. They wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't making any money at all. So, the question now is how many games do they have to shit out before they realize we're not interested in them anymore? It's getting sad. And Activision can tank the hit, but it's going to be a rough couple of years for them, I bet, unless they do a Battlefield and clean house. But I'm willing to bet any amount of money that they won't. At least that's the way it could go. You know where this starts? You know where change begins? It begins with you. That's right. You want something. You have something that Activision wants. They make their products so that they can have that thing. Give them money for products that are actually for you, that just work, that is... Just make a better video game, man. For fuck's sake. Stop giving us the same slop every year. And if you want this game to get better, don't buy it. Just don't buy it. Anyways, thanks for watching.